we don't have grace for ourselves. We're not giving ourselves space to heal, and we're not giving us ourselves space to grow. And that's how eventually we become so bitter, and then so angry, because we are constantly just being so mean to ourselves, because it does matter how we talk to ourselves. My goal now with the Freedom Project is to show other people that, hey, you are not the only one. You are not alone. There's literally a big group of people that are dealing with the same experiences, maybe not at the same level, but like there are people dealing with this.
All right. Well, good morning. It's great to be together. It's a beautiful Thursday. And so hopefully you have a chance to get outside and enjoy this early spring day. It's going to be awesome out. And I've been excited for some time to spend time with Ebrima Abraham Sisay. Did I say that close enough right?
Yeah,
For you,
yeah, you
Avery?
did.
Okay.
You did. You definitely passed the
Awesome.
test.
We've been practicing it a few
Right?
times we've got together, but he has an amazing story and is really committed both to his work, which is fantastic, but also a project he calls the Freedom Project, which is a really big contribution he is making to the community to help folks focus on mental health. But I really want to go way back. Your journey starts in Gambia,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe most folks on here probably aren't familiar with and have never visited. It's
Yeah.
a coastal country in Western Africa. Why don't you tell us a bit about your early journey in Gambia and what life is like in Gambia?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me here. I had no idea like what to expect. So I'm happy that I have an audience, because I love talking to people. So, but yeah, I actually grew up in like West Africa. It's a very small island inside a country that's its own country called Gambia. And back then, we had like 1 million people. I think now we're close to 1.5. So they're like growing pretty fast. But yeah, so I like grew up there playing soccer back in high school. I mean, pretty much my whole life. But my goal was to become a professional soccer player. So, but like growing up, I had to like, see like people go fishing. Like entrepreneurship was like a very common thing. Everyone had their own thing going on, either that's fishing or selling like used items. So it's like that's kind of like how I grew up. But yeah, as far as the country itself, everybody played soccer. It doesn't matter whether you were a boy or a girl, or like soccer was like the thing that we all would like just come together and just hang out and then also play. But yeah, but for me, somehow I was really good at it, but I wasn't very passionate about it. So my parents were supporting me, and I was like, I guess I'll do this. And then I eventually, got some opportunities, which like almost got me into becoming like a Puma athlete. But then I never actually got to that, which due to trauma and a bunch of other experiences that kind of got to me at a very young age, when I was like, I believe 11 going 12. My best friend back then, now that I'm saying the story again, I was like, why am I like having pauses and stuttering? Like I've said this like this like version so many times, but I guess I need to go back to therapy and talk to my therapist, because I thought I was over this. But anyway, so my best friend back then, when I was picked to actually become like a Puma athlete, we like went to the beach to like hang out and just celebrate. And it was my idea for everybody else to come to the beach with me. And then he ended up drowning. So when that happened, me as a little kid, I had to go back and tell his mom. And that was like the worst experience ever. Like the mom was yelling at me. And so I just kind of made it my fault. I was like, this, I was the reason why he drowned, because I kind of selfishly asked him to come to the beach with me, because that's what we do back in Africa. Whenever you have something going on, not the whole continent, but just West Africa, especially Gambia, we would go to the beach and like, so just have fun. So he drowned, and I had as a little kid, I experienced that, but then I didn't really have any outlet to like talk about it, because back in Africa, mental illness, whenever you hear someone has mental illness, it's like a guy with a really like dirty like dreadlocks. They're always getting chased or dragged to the mental facility. So to me, back then I didn't have mental illness. I went through something very like traumatic, especially watching it happen and trying to save my friend. But we were just little kids, and the tides were very strong. And so yeah, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't really know how to talk about it. That wasn't a space created. I did try one time to kind of tell my parents like, hey, something is wrong with me. I'm not really sure what it is. Is that and then I remember, and I was very young, my dad saying, hey, just pray about it, it's going to be all right. I was like, pray about what? Like, I just want to like understand what is wrong with me. So while I was going through that, I also ended up getting molested by like one of our coaches. And this is where like the physical like manifestation of trauma like actually became a stutter, because I felt like I was being silenced for so long because I wanted to talk about all these things, but I didn't really know how to talk about it. And then this thing also happened, and then along the line I also found out that a bunch of other kids in the team were also getting molested, including my friend actual passed away, like his brother ended up telling me. So it's like, I felt like I didn't have a voice to even speak up against this guy, because he's like it's someone who sponsors the team, and he's someone that everyone sees as this guy who is awesome. And he's like around pretty much all the good causes that you can imagine in the neighborhood. So I didn't really know what to say. So the stress of dealing with that actually became a stutter. So pretty much my whole life until 6 years ago, I had a really bad stutter where I would literally like hit on things just to speak. And um slowly by I mean, as the years go, kind of go by, I went from having a very like big personality to becoming like a very introverted person. And that's how I became a developer, because I was afraid to be like in front of people. And I figured, what's the best way for me to survive and keep like doing the things that I do. So I went into becoming a programmer, and then being behind the scenes and always working that way. But after that like trauma experience, I decided to quit soccer because it was just like traumatizing for me, because I was having like a bunch of panic attacks, and I wasn't able to actually complete the Puma like sponsorship. So I was dropped from that. So it was like, oh, I thought I was good, now I'm being dropped. So it was all these things were happening. So I'm gonna stop there, because I feel like I'm just going on a tangent there. But yeah.
Well, that's a lot to
I know,
contemplate
sorry
there.
guys.
How old were you at this point in time in your life?
When the molestation happened, I was around like 12 going 13. And then I actually officially quit soccer when I was 15 years old, because at that point I was having like panic attacks, and I didn't really know why they were happening. And but now today, I guess after knowing what I know now, I was able to understand that it was due to that person that was always present there. And I was literally having panic attacks, like subconsciously I was afraid of being in that space, that people are going to know what I know. And that was very like, it's not like the best highlight of my life. So I was trying to keep that secret to myself. But whenever I turn around, this person is there, so I would literally have panic attacks. So yeah. Now I forgot the question. I have to share that again.
You know, so many folks go through
Hmm.
different variations of what you've experienced. It sounds like for you, it was very lonely, like there was no one you could talk to about
Yeah.
what was going on in your life.
No, yeah. I mean, it's just the culture in like Africa, especially in the West, because that's where I'm more familiar with. When it comes to parents and their kids, there is zero communication. Like, you have to listen the whole time when your parents are talking. I mean, that's why 6 years ago, if I was here, I'll probably just be like this the whole time, and it's going to be a very boring call. But it's like, that's how we were brought up. You have to listen to your elders, and no matter what they say, it's law, and you just have to listen. But as a little kid, or like a junior, I had things that I wanted to talk about, and this happens to be this really horrible experiences that happened to me. But that space was never created for me to sit down and say, "Hey, Dad, I need to talk to you. This is what happened." But I didn't really know how to communicate that, and I was just ashamed. So as far as support, I had a great family. Like my dad, he works all the time, and my mom was a full-time mom, and she was taking care of 8 kids, and she was very young back then. So it's like they were very busy. They were trying to make things happen. So as far as support, I didn't even know that I needed the support that I know that I need now, especially from a parent, because we all grew up just, that's just life back then. You don't really know what you think until you actually experience it. You're like, oh my God, this is what I needed back then. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say that, that wasn't much support, but I had really great parents. They just didn't know how to show that support as well.
I think what came to mind when you and I first met 2 or 3
Hmm.
months ago, and I went back and reflected on it. You told me your soccer performance started to suffer, and the coaches were yelling at you. You're not focused.
Hmm.
And I wonder how often there are people around us who are struggling. They may not seem focused at work. They may not be doing their best at
Hmm.
their sport or
Yeah.
whatever. And instead of taking the time to ask and find out why, we just assume we know why. And so your
Hmm.
coaches thought things about you that weren't necessarily true. They thought you weren't focused. They thought you weren't giving your best. Talk a little bit about just what that opportunity might have been like if a
Hmm.
coach had talked to you rather than yelling at you.
No, yeah. So, I actually had to move from one school to another because, my team knew me as this really good soccer player, a really good soccer player. But it's like, they were just expecting me to perform, and I was in a really dark place. And to me, it's like, what I needed was for my coach to see that, and be like able to address it, not like to baby me or like whatsoever. It's just that back then I didn't really know what the heck was wrong with me. I was dealing with so many things, and I was developing a stutter, and then my teammates do, they don't know better, so they were literally making fun of me for having a stutter. So whenever I would speak, try to say something, my teammates are making fun, but like it's not that they're mean people, it's just that they just don't know what's going on with me either. So I would just laugh with them too, but then deep down I was like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like that's how my performance started, like, I actually suffering, because I remember some really like embarrassing moment where we had like really, like people coming out to scout players, and I'm like looking at the ball, like trying to kick it and like miss it, and like that's like the most embarrassing thing you can do in soccer. And then the whole like, like stadium is laughing, and then after that I kind of convinced my parents to take me to another school, because I didn't want to go back to that space. And that's how I ended up just quitting soccer, because when I went to the other school, I was so bad at soccer, and then I'm just like, oh my God, what's happening? And then even the coaches in the new school, they also expected me to like perform. They're like, okay, we've heard about this kid, we've seen him play. And then I was like, I don't want to play soccer anymore, but I didn't know how to communicate that, so I just went right back into it. But to me, soccer just became a very toxic environment, because the experiences that I went through was not safe. I didn't get the support from the coaches or my teammates, and that's not their fault. It's just that the environment that they grew up in, doesn't create space for men in general, especially in sports, to like sit down and have a conversation, and like go over like their like emotions, and like just talk about like, how's your spirit, like what are you doing, I mean, what's going on home, like, because the culture that we have is like, when you come to work, just keep it at work. When you go to home, keep it home. But the thing is, this person has to go home and deal with all these things, and then come back to work, and they bring all those negative like emotions in their workplace, and that's affecting their work, their day-to-day tasks. So to me, it was the same when I was playing soccer. I was constantly just having like, like flashbacks from, especially with my friend dying. That was like the biggest thing to me, because I was blaming myself and saying that this is my fault because his mom was crying and then, yelling at me and saying, why did you take my son here? And then I'm just like, I don't know, like, we're just having fun. And unfortunately, he like drowned. So I didn't have that coach or my parents to sit down and say, hey, this is not your fault, okay? This is out of your hands. You don't like make it your like fault. And I kind of identify myself as all those mistakes that I've done. And slowly, literally, as the year kind of goes by, I kept you know shifting from this very high personality, this kid that was always out there, just like very like, very good with people, to becoming very like introverted. Like it was such a weird transition. And I was the only one seeing that happening. And me as a little kid, that was impacting me and my personality and how I see things. And I was very lonely for sure. And I didn't really think I would be here today, even talking to you guys. So to me, that's why now I constantly talk, because I was mute for so long, and now I can talk. So sorry guys, I don't know how to stop. I'll do my best and stop now.
That's just such a huge burden for a 12-year-old to a 15-year-old to have to carry alone, and an unfair burden to carry that guilt that it's your
Hmm.
fault when it's really not. Um,
Yeah.
so that's just a
Hmm.
lot. So somewhere in this journey, then you got the idea to leave Gambia and come to the United States. Talk about where that came from and how you made your way here.
Yeah, so I was actually like plotting a way to leave the continent, because I felt like that's the only way that I can kind of like have a different start over. So I wanted to start over my whole life. So I literally convinced my dad and told him, hey, look, I want to come back and work for you. Like I did a whole pitch, because I've always been very like, like business minded. So I did a whole pitch deck, and I found schools all over like the US. And I wanted to go to Maryland because my best friend at the time was living there. And he like kept sending me pictures of snow. I've never seen snow before. I was and I'm just like, oh, sure, like and then I told my dad, I want to go to the US and like educate and become like an awesome accountant, and I'll come back and help you, because I noticed that one of his biggest problems was like finding a good accountant, someone that he can trust. So I was like, well, I'm his son, so I can be the best accountant, someone that he can trust. Because if I do anything, and back in Africa, you like beat your kids, your child, even when they're 40. So if I mess up, he can just grab the belt. So and then I was like, hey, look, I want to go to the US, become an accountant and come back and help you. But that was just a way for me to get out of there. And he was like, okay, cool. I'm going to pay for your trip. And then he like sponsored like the first 3 months of me being in the US. So that's how I got here. And I was genuinely trying to run away from Africa, because everything that I knew about myself was not true. Not true. That's because of insecurities and like, or dealing with all these things. And I wanted to start over, to start a new personality. But so it's like, that's how I ended up here.
Before we jump here to the US, Kurt has
Mm-hmm.
a question about your time growing up. Let's go to Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Abram, for sharing your story. That's courageous, and we appreciate that.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Um, you had mentioned, I think, one time when you came home, and this was after your day at the beach and
Mm-hmm.
being yelled at by your friend's mother. The thing that your folks repeatedly said to you, I think I heard, was pray, just pray.
Yeah.
Can you share the role of faith in your family as you were growing up, and has that evolved, or where are you at with that now?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually grew up with like, all like half of my family. So my grandpa had 3 wives. That was very common in his time. My dad used to say that he's like one of the lucky, people that had 3 wives. But after his time, it became like illegal. But he had 3 wives, so 2 of them were Muslim and one is Christian. So my family is like mixed, but like prayer is like the biggest thing. We would go to church and go to like mosque. That was like the most confusing thing as a kid. And I'm just like, okay, I'm like doing all both like religions. So growing up, you always have to pray about everything. Like everything you do, it's praying. And to me, my step grandma was someone that had a lot of influence on me. That's why I even go with Abraham in my name, because that's the Christian version of it.
Yeah.
It's and I love the way that she used to talk to me. And she was the only person that I would notice grace when I share things to her. Not that my parents are bad people, it's just that the way that they go about things is just like, go pray. And I'm just like, but I want to talk. And my step grandma had like this very beautiful like relationship with her kids, and they were just different. And I noticed that. So I would always gravitate to her. And then she would call me Abraham. And I was like, I love that. It's the same as Ebrima and Abraham. And I decided to add that in my name. So that's why now I put the like parentheses, just to like kind of like shout out to my grandma for like, talking to me back in those days. Or my step grandma. My grandma would be pissed if she heard me say grandma. But like my step grandma back then. So now me today, I don't even identify as a Muslim anymore. Like my parents are constantly reminding me, like, hey, are you praying? And I'm just like, yeah, I'm praying, but not the kind of praying that you think I'm doing. So I try to be very like respectful and have grace towards them, because that's the religion that they've known their whole life. And even though I'm not practicing that anymore, I like try to have that grace and be like, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but this is not what I'm doing anymore. It's like the most interesting thing. But praying was very common, and which I do till still today. Even before this call, I like prayed, because I was like, I don't know what to expect. I was like, I'm just gonna pray before this call, and that's something that I do before I drive. And like it got to a point where my friends will literally say, what are you saying? Because I'm saying it became a normal thing before drinking water, because like back in Africa, you have to pray and give thanks to everything you do. When you wake up, when you put up your socks, when you get dressed, you like thank for the clothing that you have on. And yeah, so that was why praying was like the go-to answer. But sometimes people just need to talk, especially in my case. I just wanted someone to hear me out, because something horrible happened to me and I was blaming myself, and I needed someone to be like, okay, let's talk. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Hopefully that the faith has continued to evolve. So very nice. Thank you.
No, definitely.
Let's go over to Steve.
There we go.
Steve, I lost him here. There you are.
I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
You're back. I thought I saw you on a mountain recently.
I know, right? I don't know how he does that. He has a portal in his bedroom, just flying different places. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Randy, thanks again for a great lessons in leadership. So Abraham,
Mm-hmm.
I had a brother who stuttered. One of my great regrets in life was making fun of my brother for that.
Mm-hmm.
I lost him in our 30s, so I never had a chance as an adult to say how stupid that was. But sort of that's just as a side.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham, I may have missed it. Maybe you had someone who gave you support throughout your journey, but I'm wondering, what was your self-talk to yourself
Mm-hmm.
that you probably still have that helps you overcome your challenges?
Yeah. Well, my brother still makes fun for me, like at me, because I still have a stutter sometimes. It will come out at the weirdest moments ever, and my accent will become so different. But yeah, so I never really had a self-talk. I was just mainly trying to run away until 6 years ago is when the narrative towards myself changed. Because I was introduced to therapy. And I actually went to therapy because my ex back then was constantly reminding me, like, you need help. And then I was like, no, I don't need help. I'm fine. But she was saying that because she was like one of my first girlfriends. And she was the first person who like accepted me for who I was. She accepted the stutter, and she was like the most like supportive human being I've ever witnessed. And somehow I just kind of depended on her for everything, and I expected her to do like pretty much all the things that I never experienced. And whenever she did not, I get disappointed, or I get angry. And then, but then she kept like emphasizing that I need to help, but like in the most loving way ever. And but then it got to a point, she's like, hey, it's either you go get help or I'm leaving. And then I was like, I'm not crazy, like what is she talking about? But then I decided to go get help. And through that journey of going to therapy, I actually learned that, I didn't really love her. I love the idea of her, the way that she was supporting me, the way that she was showing me all the things that I was ashamed about myself. She was showing me that, hey, people can love you still with like all these quirks that you have. And so after therapy, I like learned a lot of things, like even like the molestation, like my friend dying. These were memories that were so deep in my subconscious that I actually forgot about them due to the stutter. That like the manifestation became a stutter. Like the human brain is just amazing in a very weird way. But going to therapy, it kind of helped me remember all those things, and I got curious, and I was denying it the whole time until when I called my mom and I'm like, hey, did I lost a friend when I was a kid? She was like, yeah, Ablijah. I was like, wait, what? I was like, how did I forget that? And then, I got more into therapy. And at the same time, I started going to church out in Lee Summit while I was doing all of these things. And then whenever I would go to church, and I was going to church because of this girl, because I wanted to get back with her. And then it's like the whole time through therapy, that's what that was my intention. But the therapist and this pastor, they were saying different things. And then I felt like someone was paying them to like, dig into my life and say all these things. And yeah, so it's like I decided to just keep going to therapy and like learning more about myself. And one thing led to another. I literally like, the stutter just went away, and that kind of blew my mind. I was like, wait, what's happening here? Why did I lose this stutter? Like I like started talking with more confidence, because I kind of put two and two together, that I was able to be where I am today because I'm able to understand that I am not my mental illness, because I made it my identity for so long. It was all just an experience, something that I went through as a kid, but it is not who I am today. And going to therapy and experiencing like the spiritual like aspect of healing as well, combined, just kind of helped me understand that I was making this my identity the whole time. So now it's like I'm constantly like reminding myself, I guess you would call that a self-talk now, is that I'm constantly reminding myself like, hey, either that's a job or like an account that I'm working on, because I do software work, I do advertising. Sometimes you like lose a client, I will just say, well, this is not my identity. It's something that I was working on and it didn't work out, and it is what it is. So now I apply that to everything. This is an experience, it's not who I am, so I'm not going to make it my identity. So that helps me keep going to the next thing and not just blame myself right away, because we do that whenever we like lose a client or lose a friend, and we're like, oh my god, this is my fault. And we don't have grace for ourselves, we're not giving ourselves space to heal, and we're not giving us ourselves space to grow. And that's how eventually we become so bitter, and then so angry, because we are constantly just being so mean to ourselves, because it does matter how we talk to ourselves. And so now, yeah, it's just like, hey, yeah, I'm going to pray, but I'm going to also know that this is not my identity. It's not who I am. It's just an experience. And tomorrow is going to be another day. Like I can literally die today. Why do I have to make this my identity? Like there is more to life than just like, me. So yeah. Thanks for the question, by the way. That helped me answer something in my head. So.
Abraham, you referred to your identity multiple
Yeah.
times in that response. So
Mm-hmm.
what is your identity? What are your values?
I mean, that's why I even created the Freedom Project, because I saw that there was more to life than me, and me putting myself in this box and just blaming myself and think, just assuming everything, and then thinking that, my parents know what I'm going through, or my friends know what I'm going through, because I was just making it about myself. So now literally whatever I do, a lot of people don't even know who's behind the Freedom Project. Not that I'm trying to like make myself sound cool, but they don't even know who the people are until they eventually talk to me. Because now, I value just being able to connect with other human beings and help them experience, not like help them, because I can't literally help anyone. I can just tell my story, and if they find a connection through my story, I'm hoping that, but not like having like expectations, but just hoping that they will hear me and then see themselves, depending on what part of the story that I'm sharing, and hopefully that will bring them some value. So now I just value like human connection, and I value people to basically experience what I experienced, like from a kid from Africa going through all these things to becoming who I am today, conquering the stutter, because we all do have a form of stutter in our own lives that we're dealing with, and we identify with it, and it's like crippling us. So to me, it's just like, hey, there is hope out there, and we just need to be brave enough to actually see what the problem is. And I don't even consider it a problem, because the problem, makes it our fault. But if we see it as an experience, but not our identity, like this experience that happened to us as a kid, or like an adult, or even today, that kind of helps us just shift our personality from it, because this helps us not to just like feel like we have to just come and save everybody, because we can. I feel like this kind of, I get this from like spiritual aspect, where, you take yourself from things, because you can come in and just try to save everybody, because people are going to do what they want to do anyway. So the best thing you can do is just be honest, and just be vulnerable as much as you can. But, there's some aspect of vulnerability that you have to keep to yourself, of course, but just tell your story and just be real. I hope that makes sense.
So let's jump to Freedom Project.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there are folks all around us who are doing the same things you did. They're getting up and going to soccer, they're getting up and going to work, they're getting up trying to live their lives. And they may be kids who suffered sexual abuse, or they may
Yeah.
be suffering domestic violence, or they may be veterans that lost people in combat. And they've
Mhm.
got all this trauma that they're carrying around, just like you did, and sometimes even guilt, just
Mhm.
like you did. What have you learned from all of those different journeys of folks you've met with that help
Mhm.
bring and shape this idea of Freedom Project that you've really been working on for like 5 years?
I know it's almost 6 years now too. I feel like at this point I just became this guy on the internet who's just like, your mental health is key, go get help. But it's like, like in like a very loving way, of course. But it's like, initially, the reason why I even started doing the Freedom Project is because, my therapist back then recommended that I should just document myself after every session, because I was very closed off, and like an African mentality. I'm not going to share anything because I'm not crazy. Like, that's the mindset that I had the whole time. So, but then after every session, I could tell that the things that she's saying is real, but I was too stubborn to like actually respond or listen to it. So I'll just come home and like record myself, and then I'll go back and watch those videos, and I'm just like, people need to see this or hear this, because I'm watching myself and I'm just like, wow, like I'm like remembering more things, and I'm seeing more things as I watch my own videos. And then that's when I started going to Instagram and sharing. And then this is something that I wasn't expecting. I shared a post, and usually my post would get 100, 200, but this post got like 2,000 like people reacting, almost 70 comments, 40 plus people were like messaging me, and I got overwhelmed, and I'm just like, whoa, so this is not just me, because the whole time I thought it was just me dealing with all of these issues. And then now I saw almost 40 people, 70 people that are brave just sharing on social media, and 40 people were directly messaging me like, hey, how can I find a therapist? Like, I'm just like, I don't know, like, go to Google or something. So it's like, I started getting all of this response, and it just helped me realize, because I feel like a lot of people, especially like, like veterans and all this thing, because now I'm actually working with a few like veteran like organizations. And one thing that I've learned is that, they think they're the only one dealing with this in their community, but the problem is so like universal at this point, because, you know, trauma or PTSD, it can be in a form of, you know, just you waking up in the morning. You know, I try not to like diagnose, so don't take anything that I'm saying seriously right now. But yeah, it's like when you wake up in the morning, you know, like trauma can be anything that, you know, just a thought of going back to something that you're not happy about, and then waking up, you know, brushing your mouth in a very dreadful way, and then dressing up, but you're not happy about going to this place, but you have to anyway because you have to take care of XYZ. Like trauma can happen in that, and then driving to work, and then the high stress. So all of these things, even though they're more mundane, but happening every day, you know, we can experience trauma in that way. So it's like my goal now with the Freedom Project is to show other people that, hey, you are not the only one, you are not alone. There's literally a big group of people that are dealing with the same experiences, maybe not at the same level, but like there are people dealing with this, and my goal is to connect them through story where you get to watch something, because I was watching myself in videos and I can hear things, and I was watching other people that were voluntarily sending me their stories, and this were people that were just volunteering doing that because they saw the post that I did. Yeah, so it's like my journey now, it's like um initially it was just to do one video, and now it became a global project, and this was not intentional. Every day I'm just like, what am I doing? I should go and work, do something else. But this thing, it became so big that I don't even know why. I mean, I know why now it became big, because people just want to tell their story. Like a lot of people are they've never heard anyone, like, you know, give them space, and usually men, we don't have anyone that, you know, usually, you know, create space, and most of us don't know how to create space ourselves, because we're like the protector, you know, we're the provider, so we always have to maintain that image, so we don't know how to create that vulnerable space and just be honest and just share what is going on, like what's going on, you know, in my head, like how's my spirit, like how can I talk about, like today this happened at work, and it actually hurt me. And these are things that we're constantly like experiencing, and we think it's just us dealing with them, but like, you know, the shared like experience kind of help us know that, okay, this is not just me. Now I can feel safe and talk to this other man that I know and respect, and call them whenever I'm seeing the signs, and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. Are you available? Let's meet at a bar, or let's meet somewhere and just have a conversation, because I need to talk to someone. Because these are things that we need, because we spend a lot of time in our heads and thinking that it's just us. So that's the goal of the Freedom Project, just to help people understand that you are not the only one. There are people out there that are ready to help out, and we just want to connect both worlds together and just create something amazing.
So you did the introductory video of Freedom
Mhm.
Project a couple months ago. You released that.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the response from folks? You know, have you heard from people that impacted them and reminded them that it's okay to talk, and it reminded them that they're not alone?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially on the YouTube channel, we had so many people that were leaving comments when I dropped the video. Uh, but it's like that, like initial video got me like connected to Kevin Love, like the Cavalier point guard, because, you know, he's someone that actually witnessed, you know, actually had a panic attack while he was playing basketball, where he was like, I mean, he felt like he was gonna die in the middle of the game, but everything was just like an imagination, you know, just for a lack of better words. But, you know, he felt like he was dying because the panic attack was so extreme, and he literally fell down during the game, ran to the locker room. And this is something that I know, because I've been there. And, you know, when he saw my story, he's like, yo, this is me. And, I was able to actually get in contact with them. So they gave me a title. I honestly don't know what it means, but I'm like a mental health hero for them. I don't know what it means till today. So Kevin, if you guys are watching this, can let me know what that means. But yeah, so it's like that one video has been taking me to places, and because whenever I share it, most of the time, one person will share it to their boss in their company, and then the boss will see it, and they're like, wow, I didn't even know there was someone doing out this video. Just 2 days ago, I got contacted by a company called Wondermind, and it's owned by Selena Gomez, and it's a mental health media company. And they literally told me, we thought we're the only one doing this media thing around mental illness, and we didn't know there was a guy for the past 6 years yelling on the internet that no one knows. I'm just like, yeah, that's because I'm in Kansas, and it's a guy named Abraham that nobody knows. So yeah, I'm hoping that now my goal is to get a proclamation in all 50 states, because I want to take it to every state and be able to talk about mental illness very intentionally, because I feel like that's the only way that it can be part of healthcare, and actually become something that it's covered by insurance, like all these basic things that it's not available when it comes to mental illness. And when it comes to getting help, is very expensive. That's also another thing that I had to deal with. I was paying for this service, but it was so expensive, but I kept paying for it until my psychologist, she's an amazing human. She's like, hey, you don't have to pay for this. I'm very interested in your story. Just make sure you show up. And that's why I kept going, because I could not afford it anymore. But I just consider myself as one of the lucky people. So yeah, it's like, so the video basically it's just taking me places. I mean, we're here today. I didn't think I was going to be in this call talking to all these amazing people. So yeah.
So what comes next then? What will Freedom Project continue to do? Will you be capturing other stories and creating more videos of inspiring stories?
No, definitely. So now, it's so wild, because it came from just one video of myself to becoming this today. But there's actually 3 areas to the Freedom Project. One is based around accessibility. So I'm actually building a platform. And now that I'm talking about, I just realized my whole life, all the things that I've done was leading me to this, like being a developer. I was in a band playing drums because that's the only way I can communicate. So now I apply music in the Freedom Project. I was a videographer, and now I do film. I was a photographer, now and a graphic designer. So all these things that I was just doing, I literally did pest control. And it's the same model that I'm using for the Freedom Project today. And now that I'm talking about it, because back in the day, pest control, each technician would have his own account, and they would just go and service the houses. And they show up, do their thing, spray your house, and people get excited. And I happen, I had like the most like accounts in Kansas City when I was working for Blue Beetle. So now the Freedom Project, on the the startup side, we literally created a pest control model where we create a video-based platform where we're creating a bunch of content, kind of like a masterclass platform. And then every morning we send people a box, which I call a gift, and it's like a self-care package for people to not just watch videos, but the whole aspect is to gamify the whole process and make people wait for the box to even get to them. Because one thing about healing is like it has to be like intentional. If not, you know, it's never going to work. So I wanted to be very intentional on the person that's deciding to get help, because even though me, I was able to get help, but I was forced to do it, and I almost quit. And that's very common. And usually men, we're always getting forced to go get help, but we're like, you don't even know me, like chill. So it's like, so the startup side, we're creating that where someone can go in to a platform and get together like an education on mental illness, like what is a psychologist, what's therapy, what's a therapist, like who do you go to, which insurance to use, because these are information that the experts feel like it's not needed to talk about. But these were the same things that I was struggling with when I wanted to go get help. I didn't know who to talk to, who's a psychologist, how much it was, like who to talk to, and like all these basic questions is what I'm going to address in this video platform. And then it graduates into Psychology 101, where now I'm building partnership with KU and hoping that they will like provide me all the research so that we can just have people transfer credit to KU after they graduate through the Freedom Project platform. Because with psychology, that is a very like limited people going into becoming like social workers, therapists, because it's a very stressful environment. So my goal is to actually let people know what it is, so that we can have more people voluntarily going in and becoming your next psychologist. And then also on the startup side, I'm like working on making licensing like universal, so that we can stop the whole, like, you can only like perform in one state, and a lot of psychologists don't make enough money, so they can get licensed in every state, because they actually, some of them, can just, pay for all the licensing. It is very expensive. Or like come up with a program under the Jackson County and Johnson County Community Mental Health Funds, where they actually introduce a way to actually pay the psychologists, because the state budget is almost $625 million on mental health services, but the money is never spent. At the end of the year, it just get reallocated to something else. So I'm currently talking to the Community Mental Health Fund's director, Bruce Eddy. He became a really cool friend of mine now. But I'm like trying to figure out how we can pass a bill where we can take care of the psychologists, because a lot of psychologists like battle with the idea of, I'm getting paid to help people, and they ended up leaving and doing something else, because they don't want to feel like they're taking money from broken people, quote unquote. So yeah, it's like that's what's happening on the startup element, but someone has to pay for that. And I've been self-funding it for almost 6 years now. And so I decided to create like a different sector which helps me raise funds, where since I do video, and I've been fortunate enough to interview people like, John McGraw, like Dustin Colquitt. So, they bring a lot of attention to the project. And now I'm talking to Kevin Love, hopefully will say yes. And then I capture their story, and I do like like an event around their story, with their permission, of course. And then I bring them in as keynote speakers, or like guests to actually speak at the event. Jeff was here. He's actually one of the keynote speakers on my next event, but I think he's gone. But yeah, so through that, I raised like money from sponsorship so that I can continue fundraising, and then actually doing all of these stories. Because each and every production, imagine a Netflix series, that's kind of like the production quality that I create. So it's very expensive, and self-funding that as a small business owner is not easy. And yeah, so those are primarily the two sectors that I'm kind of juggling. There's also another side. So all the films that I'm producing, my goal is in the next 3 years or 5 years, I want to put them on Netflix, because the value of the Freedom Project is eventually going to go up. And then I'm hoping that Netflix and all these other, streaming services will eventually be like, all right, you know what, let's put this film on our streaming service, and that will help me actually get enough revenue to be able to support bills and do all these things around mental illness, because it's very expensive to like sponsor a bill and find a legislature that want to work with you. I talked to a few in Kansas City, and they're all like, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing and come back when you're ready to work. I'm just like, no, I'm ready. I don't have money right now, but I'm ready. So it's like I'm like accepting all of that, but then being able to find out smart ways to produce the project, to self-fund it, and then also be able to pass bill. But now I'm hoping that with Selena Gomez's potential partnership, I am trying to convince them, hopefully they're not watching this, to like become the people that actually pass the bill, because they have contact with legislatures and people like Cory Booker. They can just do a phone call. So I'm hoping that they'll become that sector, so that I don't have to do it, because I'm tired. I'm literally getting gray hair at this point. It actually look cool, but that's why I wear a bandana. People don't know. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. And so yeah, I'm hoping that they will eventually come through and take over the legislative side, and then I can focus on storytelling and then fundraising for events and the startup section. Because the startup, I see it as a way that it's going to be a catalyst for people that are wanting to get help, but they're ashamed to go get help, and then they can go in at their own time and just know what getting help look like, so that we can get rid of the stigma. Yeah, so sorry for the long-winded explanation. It's like 5 years of work, so I do my best to kind of like explain it as much as I can.
Well, it makes sense because it's passionate and it's personal because you've lived it. And so this isn't a hobby, it's your life. And
Absolutely.
You're authentic about it. And that's what's powerful. You brought it up several times, that fear of being vulnerable, not wanting to go say you need help, not wanting to talk to people. For folks that are listening and dealing with those struggles, are there books or resources you've found over your life that helps create some courage and some ability to talk?
Yeah, so I'm actually really bad at reading. Like I sometimes have to put an audiobook in my ear and read at the same time so that I can focus, because I have hard time focusing because I do so many things at one time. So that's, my phone is usually dinging or something. But when it comes to resources, I literally just go to NAMI, NAMI.com. I'm sorry, NAMI.org. It's like the mental health platform. And they have so many resources, and there's a bunch of like video platforms, because to me video works for me, because I'm not the best at reading unless the blog has an audio format and I just play that's why I love the KC Star, because they have voice. You can listen to the person read the whole article for you. But yeah, it's like, as far like resources, I've literally like relied on NAMI, because they I feel like they have the best platform. And when video works for you, it's like, there's a YouTube channel called Psych to Go, and basically the idea is to just go onto the channel and watch educational content. There are people that I'm hoping that they'll eventually come on as partners, because they have such a huge library, but it's all like animated content, animation. But yeah, so but being able to get help, I back then I was not, I was such in a dark place. I feel like a lot of people are in the same place. They don't have time to even think that reading a book or like doing self development action to actually get help. So with me, it was like I was just very, like I was in a place where I like realized that if I don't get help, I could easily become one of those guys in by the highway with a cardboard asking for help, because I was actually homeless for a bit, and I really needed to get help, and I just opened my mind to it. Even though I had so much stigma going towards it, I was very judgmental to the therapist. I felt like she just wanted to get my money, and didn't really care about how I really am. So yeah, just being open-minded. But I have been trying to read a few books for the past year, and I've never like passed the first 50 pages. But yeah, I don't even remember the title. That's how bad it is. But now, I'm gonna try to start sharing that later. But yeah, Psych2Go and NAMI has been a great resource, because NAMI has the biggest library when it comes to mental health research and mental health educational materials. And I literally, I'm doing a keynote speak there tomorrow. So like, it's so crazy. So they actually, I got connected to them a year ago, and then I did a mental health virtual 101 with them, where I brought in John McGraw. So I felt like it was supposed to be my talk, but John took the whole, because John is the awesome athlete and former Kansas City Chiefs captain. So it was like, they were like, now we introduce John, number 47. And I was like, where's the energy when you guys introduce me? But yeah, and so it's like, so I did that with them, and this Friday, they actually invited me to come to their office in Topeka. Funny story, I thought it was supposed to be a virtual call until yesterday, and I learned that, I have to be there in person. Oh my God. Okay, cool. So it's like a last minute thing. So I'm gonna go to Topeka, do a keynote speak. That'll be my first ever keynote speak, and I'm supposed to talk about hope. I watched so many videos of hope, and I always end up falling asleep. So we'll see how this goes. It's gonna be my first ever speech. But yeah, like resources, NAMI and Psych2Go, they're like my favorite. They have a huge library when it comes to understanding what mental illness and mental health is all about and how to get help.
So based on all you've learned with this journey, if you could go back and see 12-year-old Abraham dealing with all that guilt, or 15-year-old Abraham dealing with all that rejection and stress, what would you tell you? What would you tell yourself?
So this is something that I think about, but like I try to think about it, like, in like not like in a negative way, because usually I would say, if I can go back, I'll just slap myself in the head, like, what are you doing? Wake up. Yeah, but now, like, in a more positive manner, just the same thing that I said earlier, just to remind myself that, hey, you are making this your identity. It's not who you are. Even though this is so hard to deal with right now, it is just an experience right now. And be brave enough to like talk about it, and actually, be loud as much as you can, because the thing is, the more that we keep it to ourselves, the more we identify as the problem, and the more we actually losing power, and not like in like a very greedy way of power, but we just lose our own power and our own self, and we're slowly, you know, manifesting something. Well, in my case, it was a stutter. Like the stutter was really bad, and that actually made my whole situation even worse. That's why I ended up having panic attacks, because I was being made fun of. Yeah, just to, like, you know, remind myself, if I can go back, it will be just to, like, see that this is not who you are. It's just you know, like an experience, not my identity. I wish, you know, someone told me that back then. But now, you know, not that I wish, it will be nice to have someone talk. I feel like, you know, it's all part of my journey, and it lead me to where I am today. So I try to, you know, see it in a different light, than like, oh my God, like, why did this happen to me? But like, oh my God, this happened to me. Oof, that was rough. Well, here we are today, and I'm just grateful to be alive, and you know, talking to people about it, and just sharing my story.
With a lot of really positive comments in the chat, Jenna points out how admirable it is, your bravery and vulnerability. It's really hard to talk about the things you're talking about, for people to be authentic and to share their journey.
Mm-hmm.
Dan really loved the way you explained that, of your experience, not your identity. I think so many of
Mm-hmm.
us need that reminder that our
Mm-hmm.
experiences aren't who we are. They're just things that happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, of course, is a big fan of
Yeah,
yours.
Jeff.
And Steve says you might help disrupt a broken healthcare system. So that's really a
I
powerful
know.
opportunity. Kurt talks about the difference you're making, and really, it's and Jacob here talks about how you're changing lives, and so I think you've found your purpose here in this
Mm-hmm.
now 6 year journey to build the Freedom Project, and it's just
Yeah.
going to start taking off, and you really are going to have a powerful impact on people's lives. There are people all around us that we look at, just like you, going to soccer practice and going to
Mm-hmm.
work and going to do their things every day, and we don't know the burdens they've got in those packs on their back that
Right.
they're toting around with them. And you just remind us to stop and talk and listen,
Mm-hmm.
and help people carry some of that load.
Absolutely. No, yeah, it's a very, like, cold world out there. Like, someone inside tried to make a dad joke, but it looks like it's not hitting. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm also a new dad now. I mean, my son is 4, and you know, it's been so nice just to be present, and you know, see the things that I never experienced as a kid, and you know, talk to my son, and like, you know, listen to him. Like, the listening part was like the hardest part, because I realized I didn't know how to listen. I like to talk a lot, but my son kind of, like, you know, broke me down, and like helped me understand that, listening with intent is very different than just listening to respond. Like, you know, it's something that has, you know, helped me in my journey, because the first 2 years were very rough. I actually, like, had an investor who was my client, who saw that what I was doing, and then was like, hey, I want to help you make this work. And he was going to give us almost like $1 million to just go and do all of it, because he also you know, grew up in a very bad neighborhood, and kind of claw himself out to become who he is today. And somehow we got connected, and he saw me constantly talking about psychology and my own story, and he was fascinated by it. And one day he, like, opened up to me and told me about all the things that happened to him as a kid, like molestation, like literally having to see people die in his neighborhood, and he has to go to school. So it's like all these things that, you know, no one knows. And he decided he wants to help. But then when COVID came about, he actually passed away from COVID. And then I was like, all right, I gotta do this for Marvin, because he's the first person that believed in me. So I was just going until I became a dad. He just kind of like, oh, like, slow me down. Okay, I'm doing this because I genuinely believe that it is the only way that we can save the planet. Because I see so many people talking about climate change, all these things, but people are trying to figure out how to pay their bills. People are trying to figure out how to get better healthcare. People are trying to figure out how to get groceries. How do you expect them to care about the planet, like you know, like the forest and all these other things? It's like, let's take care of the people, give them access to the basic needs. I know a lot of people think when I say that, they're like, oh, he's lefty. I'm not at all. Like, but it's like, to me, I was that guy who just wanted someone to give me the basic necessity, just show me the access. I'll get myself out there. But no one was, there to show me that access, access to information, to who do I go and speak to. I was literally online and Googling, and Google was so overwhelming because I didn't know what I was looking for and what I needed to look for. So yeah, it's just, basically giving people the access to take care of themselves, then they will take care of the planet, because it just makes sense. If people are in a better state of mind, they will more likely even volunteer and go clean the forest, or so it's like I'm like so checked out of all of that. I'm just focusing on people and getting them access. So yeah, that's kind of like a long-winded explanation.
Well, great work. Appreciate all you're doing. Can't wait to see where all this takes you. I know there's big things ahead for you as you continue to positively impact lives.
Thank you.
So thanks for the great work. Thanks for spending time with us today. It was awesome. I knew it would be, and you were awesome as planned.
Thank you. No, yeah, I was looking forward to it. I was gonna prep for it. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna go in, just like I do with everything, and just like hang out, not stress it. I was gonna wear a whole fedora, but I was like, no. As you can see, the two fedora, that was me deciding. I just hang.
I was shocked you weren't in the fedora.
I know. Yeah, it became my brand now, because I was like, I gotta wear the fedora, because people were like, oh yeah, I'm not just Abraham, I'm Abraham with the hat, and it just kind of differentiated me from all the other Abrahams out there.
It's all part of who you are.
Right? No, definitely. But yeah, thanks for having me. It was nice, speaking here. I definitely wasn't expecting an audience, so it was nice to sharing and talking to everybody here. It makes sense to see people when you're talking. So
well,
yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, good luck with the speech Friday.
I know, I'm excited about
big
that.
Things to come ahead, and have an
All right,
awesome
thank
weekend.
you. I know, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna wing it, so yeah. But yeah, thank you.
All right, well, bye everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.